Roll call. Start off with.
Frank Hampton,
Here.
Brian Richardson, Paula Freed,
Here.
Jim Mays, John Gunn,
Here.
Pete Brungard,
Here.
Maxwell Brocktolly,
Here.
Cheryl Murray,
Here.
Lloyd
Okay.
Davidson,
Here. Okay, we have a few guests on. Let's go ahead and start the meeting by confirming that the notices went out and
Yes, the notices went out for the meeting, was sent to the city, which they sent it out through their system as well as we sent ours out. So, Mr. Chairman, we've done our duty.
very good. Any public comments? I see several guests on. Does anybody have anything they want to bring up?
Commissioner Havoc is now our city representative, so we appreciate him joining us today and appreciate all his help over the past year.
Can I ask who caller 5 and caller 7 might be?
One of them's Paula.
Okay, one of them's Paula.
Roger Sparks here.
Okay, that's,
Well,
All
Commissioner,
right, thank you.
so Paula must be 7.
glad to have the county represented today.
I think
You're more than welcome.
Jim Mays last time as a new member on board. Max, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself as our new?
Sure, I suppose. My name's Max. I've been a lifelong resident of this community, a small stint out at the university and a little bit in the state of Ohio. My family has been manufacturing labor in this community, about a combined 100 years of experience there, myself included. And my interest is, of course, in the health of this community and the well-being of everybody who lives here, people who are very dear to me, and especially along economic lines. Like that's really, I think, the foundation of how we experience well-being, the security of our back that allows us to pursue the things that really interest us. So I'm really quite honored to be here, and I'm hoping to learn a lot from all of you and to maybe do a little bit to better this place that I love so much.
Thank you for serving. First item is the minutes went out. I think I had one correction. I believe I was here and showing that I was online. I think I remember being
Yeah,
here.
you were.
Any other corrections to the minutes? If not, I entertain a motion to approve. Do I hear a second? Okay, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed,
Aye.
nay? Also, financial reports went out. Mitch, do you have anything to
Yes.
highlight on this?
Got on the phone with our new treasurer, Brian, who couldn't be here today with us, and just reviewed several items. He had question marks about, what was in a certain accounts, like our telephone, and we've just got several different items. Some of our technology, like the GoToMeeting cost is included in that. So very simple. The other item for our new members as well, we are paid on a quarterly basis from our sponsors, from the city, the county, the airport authority. So it did not show up in the January statement, but we've been paid by all of the sponsors, and that all came in by first part of February. So overall, I mean, we're starting off the year obviously in good shape with our carryover, and working through the process of trying to figure out where we need to be spending money, and we'll talk about that here in a few minutes. But overall, it's a normal month, nothing out of the ordinary.
Any questions for Mitch?
I think I should have talked about this a little bit more because we are recording this, and the city has tried to get all the supporting committees and organizations try to be have everybody say their names when they make a motion, and let's do a roll call for each of the votes as well. I mean, we're pretty simple. There's not many of us here, but with some of us online and some of us in the room, it probably would be good to do that. So.
Okay, Mike Hanson was moved to approve.
Is there a second?
We're approving,
Budget.
Yeah.
Pete Brungart, second. Motion, do a roll call for the rest of the members, if you would. Just
Frank Hampton. Paula Freed,
Aye.
Jim Mays. He said
I see him.
He's here.
John Gunn,
I'm reading. Mays. We can't hear you, Mays. You're on mute. You get a little red microphone next to you.
Do we have him muted? I've tried to mute him for years.
He's got a little red microphone.
Pete Brungart, Maxwell Brock Holly, Cheryl Murray, Lloyd Davidson.
Aye. Okay.
That vote was 8-0 and it passed.
All right, thank you. Guess we go to director's report next. You might start off with explaining where we are with the strategic plan and what happened yesterday.
Definitely, that's item number one. So that's perfect timing.
Read.
Yeah, perfect timing. Yesterday morning late, we had a call with 80 Advantage, Janet 80, and a gentleman that is doing the hands-on, most of the hands-on work on our update, Jordan Ackerman, and had a very good discussion. We're at the point where probably the majority of the report is done, and we reviewed that. A lot of the basic information is statistics about the community, items they've noticed, and they were very positive about what they had seen from our previous visits. A lot of the items of importance to them is looks like Jim may be in Florida or somewhere, but the quality of life issues downtown, that was something that they saw clear improvement, and as a site location consultant, when they would come into a community, that would score well on how the community is doing. And just like the individuals who came to the city to talk about and got that going, they hit it out of the park because of the quality of life issues and that sort of thing. So they were very positive on that. The other item, I guess if we had to name it two, would be our infrastructure. They were very positive about the number of sites, our utilities, the street and highway capabilities we had with the two interstates, the rail lines, the airport. Obviously, now our numbers are down a little bit, but starting to build back. But the main part was the capabilities of the Salina Airport Authority in terms of the runways and the hangars that are available, So they felt like we were in good position, which led all parts of the three items that we're focusing on was aviation, agriculture, which could be in terms of food production and/or food or ag equipment, which would be roughly Great Plains. That was a real positive. And then warehouse and distribution. I went blank there. So warehousing and distribution, and we had a positive discussion related to some of the projects we're working on as well. Tim did a great job of providing an update to Janet and letting them know what was going on. So in the process, they're going to get back. Involved in the call was Lloyd, Tim, Mike Scragg, Renee with the chamber, and I believe that was it. And just reviewing those top items. And we're talking about I think there was 160 pages that we got on Monday, so we didn't have a lot of time to review it beforehand. But we're talking about pages and pages of supporting documents, supporting information. So you all will be getting, Lloyd got a copy, I know, to look at it. But I'll be sending that out probably tomorrow.
I actually got it yesterday.
We got it. What do we got?
I sent it out.
Okay, you sent it, yes. All right. Well, you all have gotten that. And if you need some sleeping material, there are a few, a lot of details on the targeted industries. But I think overall, they picked 3, and I think those are the ones that are best suited for Salina. And it's not a change. Those were the 3 when we did it the first, 3-4 years ago when we did this initially. It has not changed. It's only been reinforced with the successes that we've had this past year with the 3 to 4 years with the One Vision. So, that's kind of a 3-minute overview of what we've talked about and been working on, but it is positive. They see us being well suited, especially for a community of our size. They see a lot of possibilities, and we keep going back to the same issues, those problem issues of housing and childcare. So not a surprise there. And as we've talked about before, these are problems nationwide, not just here in Salina or Kansas, but nationwide. It is an issue, and we're seeing that with some of the discussions from the new administration as well. So be more than happy to answer any questions, and then I can go ahead and get into more the revisions, what we've talked about for this upcoming year, what we need to be doing. Anybody have any questions?
I think we're supposed to review it and get back to them by the end of next week.
Right.
With things we want them to add
Or finesse or provide some additional information on. They are working across the country. They see a lot of different communities. They're going to provide us some information on housing programs and child care programs. And they have seen some places that have come up with some new ideas on how to deal with it. Whether or not they'll work in Salina will be something we'll have to review and look at. But there is some positive activities. Frank, you got a question?
No.
Okay.
Mike's Craig here, and Mitch did a good job of touching on housing and childcare, and the document kind of addresses those 2 topics as challenges. It doesn't go into great detail in terms of a prescribed solution or anything like that, but I would just reiterate that both of those topics are turning into very much a community conversation. I know there's a lot of side conversations going on with various groups and individuals, and so we're having some discussion, chamber, EDO, city level about trying to get our arms around that conversation and the stakeholders and getting organized to be productive in that regard. So I don't know that this strategic plan is going to prescribe a path forward for the EDO, but I think it is very much a community issue, and the EDO is going to need to be ready to be a leader on both of those topics.
Mike, if you don't, while you're speaking, if you don't mind, on the next segment or additional items, we've talked about it last month about coming back and kind of narrowing in on what exactly we need to be focusing on this upcoming year. Housing was number one. Would you kind of give everybody an overview of what happened on the first with the commissioners during their study session? Thought we had some good discussion.
Well, housing's been kind of an ongoing topic just in general, as we've seen our housing starts kind of slow down, in part revolving around special assessments and changes in our policy in the past. Our economic development successes are driving the need for a lot of employees between Schwann's and Great Plains. So it pretty much undeniably makes the point that we're going to need new workers coming to the community, and they're going to need somewhere to live. And I won't go into great detail, but some of our employers are already experiencing housing challenges for those employees. And leading up to the city commission conversation, I think we were contacted by as many as 7 different interested developers, all indicating the numbers don't work for them to develop housing or single family or multifamily at market rate due to labor costs and material costs, and all of them asking for some type of incentive or subsidy. So we took that whole topic to the city commission in the study session that Mitch was talking about. Staff had already initiated an update of our housing study with the consultant that we used previously to kind of revisit our housing stock and our needs and tools that might help us address those. The city commission, on a very general level, indicated consensus on the urgency, the need for incentives, or receptivity to considering incentives we may not have considered in the past. A lot of the conversation leading up to that was tax abatement, property tax abatement. Coming out of that, we had a meeting with the developer that was property tax abatement as well as just a straight up $1 million cash incentive from the city. I'm struggling with that a little bit in terms of just the sustainability of that model. If you scale that up from that development proposal to our need, I really don't know what that number is, but it feels like we're talking tens of millions. So we got direction from the city commission coming out of that study session, kind of review all the options, proceed with urgency on the proposal that we have before us, and report back. So we've been meeting with developers, we've been meeting with our financial advisors on tools and how they might apply to our needs, and we're preparing to come back to the city commission with a housing study update, as well as more specifics on development proposals and requests and what options we might have in the way of incentives. So that wasn't all that brief, but that's kind of the lay of the land there.
Anybody have any questions for Mike? I thought that was a good overview. I think there was 35 people calling in from the last count I saw during that meeting. So several industry people called, provided comments, and I know a couple had written letters or emails, sent those to the city as well. So.
And now, I'm keeping an open mind. I don't want to cause any preconceived notions, but the level and number of requests for just cash subsidy as it relates to housing and childcare are a little concerning to me, just in terms of they don't appear to be sustainable, a sustainable solution, and I don't know that we have enough cash to treat all those the same. So we've never really considered property tax abatement before, but the point that we were making in the study session, the point that we have made with some of the developers is property tax abatement is foregoing revenue and deferring that till the development comes on the property tax rolls. That's easier from a budget standpoint than having to write an actual check and come up with proceeds to fund a subsidy. And so that's the difficult decision point or financial challenge that we're trying to figure out.
Anybody have any questions?
I actually had a question.
Go ahead, please.
Cheryl had a question. Has anything come out of those federal opportunity zones that were implemented? Is there any, did that generate any sort of development?
There hasn't been, that's been talked about and discussed in this most recent discussion, but there's not been anybody that's showed any real interest in the opportunity zones.
Yeah, Mike's Craig again. I can elaborate on that a little bit. The developers that have approached me about housing projects, I start there in terms of the opportunity zone overlaps the city's neighborhood revitalization area. So from an incentive perspective, that NRA area has property tax abatements already in place, and then the overlying opportunity zone is an opportunity to avoid capital gains taxes. So that's the starting point of my conversation with developers. We had one developer that was pretty experienced out of Wichita, really kind of pursued that in great detail, but they came back with the conclusion that the incentive itself just didn't fit their model, and they couldn't get comfortable or find any locations in the neighborhood revitalization area, opportunity zone area that were of a size that fit their development. I also had conversations with the financial advisors we use for new market tax credits for the field house, and they are very involved with the opportunity zone credit financing. And there's a model out there where investment groups have capital gains and they're looking for somewhere to place them, but their feedback to me was investors in general are finding it hard to take advantage of the opportunity zone incentive. And so they're seeing a lot of activity nationwide. On the new market tax credit side, we were able to find a group with a need for that tax credit, and then we were able to convince them to invest in the field house. And opportunity zone wise, they weren't nearly as optimistic that there were investment groups out there looking for places to put their capital gains from an outside standpoint.
There is, Cheryl, there is some discussion about making some modifications right now. I don't know how far that'll go, but the president and his folks have put forward some modifications to extend those, and that's still being in the process of being worked out, but it's definitely on their radar screen. I think in the Northeast, the major cities, there are acceptance and some programs being developed using the opportunity zone, but rural part of the country, talking with parts of the state here, it's pretty limited from what we've seen here in Kansas.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. Okay, well, unless there's anything else, I'm gonna go ahead and move on. We talked about kind of coming down with some local, basically the priorities for the organization this upcoming year, and I think it's pretty evident. The first one has got to be the housing question. That ties back into attraction of new companies, new businesses. It's going to be, needing workers, and what we've seen, there's two things that workers need, three things: a job to start with, and then housing, someplace to live, whether it's an apartment, entry-level home, and then childcare. So the second thing I've got on my list is childcare. there has been some additional movement on that. The child care aware group that Eric Brown has been involved with for quite a while, and the chamber, and then I got involved last year before COVID kind of shut things down. That was the group that came forward with the $100,000 request to the city. That was also part of the group that went down to Garden City and saw their toured their community and what they're planning down there. To give you an update, they've just had their first boot camp. There was a couple of communities that came in to learn how they're doing their process, which is not, they have been hung up with COVID as well, and some of the legalities of getting the state agencies that review and approve childcare locations. That's been a slowing point, but they have several facilities in line, ready to be opened up later this spring and in the early summer. But they've got 2 facilities located within their largest mobile home park. They're leasing those from the owner. And then they've got a church that has stepped forward with space in their facility that will be opening up a little bit later. And then the third or fourth, depending on how you count them, is in a former nursing home, which this local organization has purchased and is in the process of renovating, and that's going to be ready to be opened up early part of the summer. So that's what they're working on. So we don't have any really track record yet of them. They haven't even started taking a list of people that are interested in coming into these new facilities, which that'll start in April. But they are slowly making progress, and so there is some additional local news. Greg Nichols, the president of Salina Tech, and I were talking about 2 weeks ago on some other issues, and he said, I've got one more item I want to bring up. And he has been working with the airport authority about some additional property for their future needs. And there has also been a movement within the state's community colleges with some possible funding for childcare. Greg has been looking, and his staff have been looking at possible training programs for childcare workers. That is something they're very interested in as a potential training program. The big issue, like we've talked about for those employees, is training and educating them, and then it's a position that just won't pay that well. And Greg is looking at that and trying to work on some ideas of, if you have a trained worker, hopefully you'll be able to pay a little bit more. So we've got a meeting tomorrow with people from the Child Care Aware, the Chamber, myself, and the community, Salina Tech, to talk about what their ideas are, and maybe this is something that we can help develop some possible cures for the problem that we're facing here. So I feel real excited about that. Tim and the airport authority had their meeting yesterday, and they've are looking at some additional lots adjacent to the college. And if recognize the big blue building that's right on Centennial that is adjacent to their welding shop. That building has been talked about for years, needing to come down. It's structurally in very poor shape, and that's probably going to be is going to be demolished here real soon. We'll find out more tomorrow, and that'll open up some other property there on the Salina Tech's site. So that's something that'll be an eyesore that's been talked about for quite a while. We've been wanting to get removed. So that's kind of a quick update. If anybody has any questions, but these would be housing 1, childcare 2, and then I'm getting down to number 3, would be something that Lloyd brought up. I don't really know if it fits into this discussion, but for us, it would be prime discussions, and that's our budget renewal for the city, the county, airport authority, and of course the chambers doesn't provide cash, but they provide the housing for us. So that would be a top item. I won't call that 3, but that'll be in the list. And I've reached out to Mike and to Philip at the county, and he's provided me the schedule of when the county is going through their budget process. So Lloyd and I will need to sit down and put our heads together on how we go about approaching the commission, both the city and the county commissions and the airport authority. So that would be the next one. We've talked about certified sites numerous times. The state has got the program under their control now. They're working through that, so I'll be reaching out. That'll be one of the things that will take a couple months, several months to work through the process. So that's another item. Web update is another item that Robert and I both feel we need to get that updated. And part of that is 3 testimonials. We'd like to get somebody, Jim Sponder from One Vision, Linda Salem from Great Plains, and we've got to figure out who we could get from Swans, either locally or if we get somebody from Marshall out of the corporate office to take part in a testimonial, 2 to 3 minutes. I've seen these on other communities that work very well, get very good positive response, that we've now been successful. We've got something to brag about, so to speak, for the community. And I think those will be something we can get done. I've talked to one video company here, meeting with them tomorrow morning. And then I've got a call into another one trying to get them to provide a quote. So we'll be working on that during this. This is not an immediate item like some of these other ones are. And then the last one I've got, and we've talked about this last month as well, and that's the entrepreneurial challenge contest, whatever we want to call it, that John Gunn has volunteered to be the chairman of. And isn't that right?
I disappointed him. Yeah, he's got it.
So John's going to be very involved in that. I'll put it that way. How's that? Does that sound better? We'll talk. Okay. All right. But there is some interest. I know potentially bringing the colleges in. There's so many different formats other communities are using. So we just got to figure that what's best for us. So that completes that's 6 items. Some of them are a little harder than the others. Housing and child care are big long-term aspects, but they're critical, and that's why they're on the top of the list. Last month we asked about people throwing in their other potential ideas.
I think open it up and
Yeah.
see if, are there other things that you feel like we either need to prioritize higher than these or that we're missing? I know one that we talked a long time is trying to get some matrix of nature for success.
Right. That was one we had talked about.
And I think that's one where we try to steal ideas from other
Exactly.
organizations. I don't even know where to start.
I know where to start.
You know, we struggled with that back at chamber with economic development. I mean, it's, you know, you can measure a lot of things that are unmeasurable. There's just inherent challenge. You have to know that you can set up a matrix. You can try and quantify as much as you can try and quantify, but ultimately you've got to have a subjective valuation that you know have to look at things beyond beyond just the measurables.
Yeah, I don't think there would be any perfect answer to that, but at least trying to help us prioritize what we are. You know, I know childcare and housing are important, but does this group need to take the leadership role of it?
They're not designed to take a leadership role in that.
No.
We're an advisory group. We can say that we understand, we believe that this is something that's very important, and we think that the city or the county should, should please consider this. But ultimately, that's for people who are elected representatives to make those types of evaluations on those issues. I mean, that's not for us. I know that we went through on childcare, and we said, yeah, this is an interesting proposal, and we would forward that on to the city commission with the, with the recommendation. But ultimately, it's the city commission. It's their call whether they want to fund that out of their monies.
Yeah, Mike Scragg here. I wouldn't rule that out, but I'm hopeful that what we're seeing in other communities is that conversation is beyond a recommendation to be funded by the city, and it's a community effort. Part of the conversation from the consultants and the strategic plan study were examples of employers identifying the importance of childcare as a recruitment and retention tool for them, and some public-private model where there's an investment on the part of employers or other community members beyond just the city.
Yeah, and Mike, that's happening. Last year, I've been a member of the Salina Regional Health Foundation, and we made a significant commitment to childcare, and again, that's kind of public-private because there's incentives for the employer itself, the hospital, to have some sort of priority for employees and being able to utilize that childcare facility. And so, I think those efforts are important. I'm just talking about our board here as far as what our role is. We've certainly talked about housing, and I think that housing and childcare are ones that need to be part of the discussion. We can certainly emphasize that and make sure that everybody in the community knows that the ability to attract business and to grow more housing inventory than what we have, and that hopefully, unlike 4 or 5 years ago, that the discussion has changed rather than trying to disincent developers, that we're actually working in the other direction.
Yep. No, I agree. It's a community-wide conversation, problem, and solution, I think.
Yeah, we're not going to be the lead on these top two. The other ones that are more internal is, yes, that's totally our issues. But no, there's the call we had on, just for example, the childcare call. People that were interested, I think there was 16, 17 different agencies represented. So there's that's a big issue to get. So it's not going to be all falling on the city, that for sure. There is some state money we're looking at, the Salina Tech. So there's a lot of partners we've got to bring together to figure out how to solve that beast. So it's a multi-agency organization effort for sure. So does anybody else see we're missing the boat on something that for some reason?
The only thing I wanted to add was, I'm glad Frank brought up Salina Regional, because we had talked about that last year, maybe encouraging the big employers to set up, on-site care and childcare. And Frank, could you expand any more about how far those discussions went with Salina Regional, or?
Yeah, with Salina childcare outfit that Tom Martin, the executive director, and Marla worked with, they basically were presented a model in which they would provide, I don't want to go into the detail that sure they can find with it. Basically, they're providing a lot of direct money because they were, and with that, it was being used to enhance some of the salaries of the workers, because one of the big problems is that they didn't have the cash flow to provide enough money to, one, attract workers, and then two, even more important, to keep workers. And so what they were finding is that they're over there at the Donna Pierce Center, and that they had way more space than they were taking advantage of. And, they weren't finding they just weren't finding the employees. And so part of that money has been able to increase the salary base of what they're paying the workers. And then, trying to also rationalize the payment structure of how much, people are paying to get in, and making sure that people are paying enough to cover the costs of what's being provided. But it's, I think the early returns are promising, and we will see. But I think that, the employers, and Jeff Thompson even mentioned that last year as we were talking about child care, is that, as management of a large employer, that, he would find this to be the most attractive if he can prioritize his own employees. And so I think that's probably the natural direction of it, is that you will find large employers who, by virtue of what they're hearing from their own employees, by virtue of trying to recruit more employees, that they're going to want to become more involved in that solution.
Right.
Any other comments? If not,
You should have, we'll move on. You should have your prospect update page. I'm just going to flip or go right back to the bottom to our green one, which is the newest one. And that's project Excel R8 Excel. Another manufacturer. This is again coming out of Department of Commerce. This is a West Coast project coming from the staff person that's out of San Diego. So he covers the western part of the United States. So we've submitted a site of it's approximately 200 acres with rail. Rail is critical for this project, the only reason we're in it. So we understand from the project manager, there's probably one other site that meets this criteria. So I talked to him yesterday. He had some additional questions about the property and how close to the city limits. And I said, well, city limits are adjacent to the site, so we're pretty darn close. And some other basic questions. So we're looking at some additional questions, probably moving forward within the next 2 to 3 weeks, is what he felt like talking with the company representative. And at that point, we'll know more about the wage numbers, that sort of thing. But it is an unknown. We don't know what they're producing on this project yet. They told him that if he knew what it was, we probably would know who the company is. And at this point, they're still wanting to keep that confidential. And then going back up the list, Project Falcon. That's Tim was contacted directly by a representative of a real estate firm out of off the East Coast, and possible warehousing of up to maybe 1 million square feet that could require air, but they're also interested in ground shipping. So that individual has been to Salina, has looked at the Airport Authority property, and hopefully we'll be getting a visit sometime maybe in the next month. They also looked at the 80-acre property the airport owns. south of Waterwell, and had divided that up into 5 200,000 square foot buildings, or a total of 1 million square feet. So that's all options that they're looking at. They see several of their potential, the real estate firm sees several potential companies that they're talking to. So hopefully we'll know more, but that's obviously located on the airport property, would be a huge game changer for us with air cargo coming in and out of the facility. Tim, you got anything you'd want to add?
Mitch, you covered that very well. Again, this is a real estate developer out of Philadelphia, East Coast based. They do have Kansas ties and an association with Kansas. In fact, have looked at, actually mentioned to Mike and Eric and Mitch, Renee, in a call previously. Actually, the developer actually had looked at housing project a number of years ago, a large apartment complex. So they're involved in both commercial, industrial warehousing space, but also the housing space. So the visit by one of the associates, they are aware of this need for housing. So they're going to be developing some thoughts about maybe submitting a proposal or looking at a possibility for a project here. And they excel in large 200 to 400 unit type of projects. They do work on a large scale. And the president of the company would be coming in hopefully within the next 30 days. Mitch and I have coordinated this project with the Kansas Department of Commerce, Secretary Tolan, now Lieutenant Governor Tolan, also the dual hats, the dual role. And again, that was just confirmed that this developer is not looking at any other site in Kansas. And so this is kind of an inside track to a relationship that maybe leads to something else, but it certainly gives us somebody who has access to large, Fortune 100, Fortune 200 clients that are looking for space that could be located at an airport and have that air cargo capability. Air cargo is growing at a tremendous rate. Gary Foss, the Airport Authority's air service consultant, is now also tracking growth in air cargo. Air cargo, I think, grew because of pandemic, unprecedented growth there, 15-20% as compared to prior years. And that trend line is going to continue. So there's connections to air cargo operators through One Vision Aviation. So we're reaching out through One Vision to companies like Mesa Airlines that's doing more air cargo work, dedicated air cargo work. And so there's a lot of crossover and opportunities to take advantage of that the economic development team is working on. Thanks, Mitch.
Thank you, Tim.
So Mike Scragg here, and I'm going to apologize in advance for going off script on you, Mitch, but
All right.
we just looked at the draft strategic plan yesterday. One of the things that got my attention was there's the reference in there that slaughter operations are a growth opportunity in our region. And we have had interest from slaughter operations. And I think this group's already discussed kind of the general receptivity or not to that type of operation in general, let alone providing incentives. But between the strategic plan comments and interest by prospects, that's a pending decision point, it seems to me. And it might be good for us just to get a sense of whether we're even open to that as a community.
Yeah, I think that's the point on that group of potential is it something we want or not? And you're absolutely right that depending on what they're actually doing, how they're handling it, unfortunately the folks that we had talked to kind of that went away, they didn't progress here locally. I think they're still working on their number one location was at Colby. So, but we can find that out. But yes, it's on the list. Is it something we want? That's the bigger question mark. And
Yeah,
can
if
we
it's a
provide the-
non-starter, then no need to invest the staff time, let alone get people's hopes up. But if we're open to it, then we can certainly staff it through from infrastructure, utilities, locational, incentive standpoint.
This is Paula. I'm wondering, what is the process we use to decide something like that? What the community interest is, or what our sense of that is?
Well,
Go ahead.
I think as a board, go ahead, Mike.
Well, I was going to say, from my perspective, we basically entertain all inquiries that we might get, and Mitch kind of leads the charge in staffing those through. And so behind the scenes, we're trying to verify whatever their details are: sewer capacity, water capacity, zoning, locations. So we prep all that as if it's a viable project for consideration, then bring it forward to this group, and you consider it and make a recommendation whether it should go forward or not. And so that's why I say, if it's a non-starter, just topically across the board, then there's no need to go to all that effort. But if we're open to it, or if it's if it's the exact right prospect and the exact right location, we'd entertain it. Then I think we continue to staff it through.
Yeah, personally, I see that's going to be one that the community is going to have to weigh in as well, because we all, not all, but the Tonganoxie project, which was not handled very well by the state or the community, that was something the community leaders felt like it was all supportive, and then when it went public, it all went, I won't say where it went, but it blew up, and everybody was pointing fingers and, I didn't support that, after they had written letters of support. So that's a really politically difficult type of a project. I was involved with a chemical plant back years ago, and that was a nightmare, and major investment in the community, but the local environmental lobbyists actually stole these shovels at the groundbreaking ceremony and ran across the field, and the police had to tackle them, and it was a big mess. But that's something that we need to have a process in place that says, okay, this is something we're interested in, this is something we're not. So let us take a little time, and we'll come back next month and have some type of a structure, maybe a process put in place. Most of the projects that we get are obviously something that we would not have, issues like a slaughterhouse or a large chemical plant, but they do come across every once in a while. And if that is because it's on the list of potential match, doesn't mean that we have to go after it. So.
Yeah, the Tonganoxie project is a really good example. I'd forgotten about that one.
Yeah. Any of you all don't know much about it, it was Tyson Foods was going to put a project, or a major 1,000, I think it was going to be 1,000 people employer, and the economic developer over there is a friend of mine, and he had city staff, everybody signed up, county commissioners, all in agreement, elected state rep, state senator, all in agreement. And then when it went public, and it was not handled very well, it was kept very, very quiet until they announced it. There was no input from the community, and it was like, when it was announced, the people that had supported it all of a sudden didn't know anything about it and were not in support. So they all were starting to back up. So it was poorly handled. So he admitted that, but it was out of his control.
Okay.
Does that sound like a legitimate idea, just to kind of put together a framework and how we would go about that? And I'll have it next month.
Any other of the projects?
No, the other ones are pretty much either on hold or, they're still reviewing the data. So I'm thinking within the next month, a lot of those will be coming off because they've either died or going somewhere else. But we are
Project Fairview, didn't it go away?
Fairview.
That's the R3.
Archer, yeah, that never did move forward. At least with us.
All right, do we have any need to go in executive session?
No need for executive session.
Anything else? I'm before the group. Trying to keep with Pete's schedule of 1 hour. It's late, so I think we're still within the hour. Anybody on the phone have anything they want to bring up? I do have one more thing to put on the project list. I think we need to figure out how we market ourselves better and how the community gets informed now that newspapers.
Are you talking about marketing ourselves to our own community or
I think-
to employers who are looking to come to our community?
I think both. I think we need to do a better job of telling our story locally and to prospects.
Well,
I think
tell it to prospects once we have them. I think we've got that part down pretty good, but it's getting more prospects.
Well,
That's
yeah.
the
filling
issue.
the pipeline a little
Yep.
better.
Yep.
People just don't know who we are or where we're at. I don't think everybody has that problem, but I don't know that's one of our strong suits as a board, so we may have to get some outside help.
Well, that's part of the testimonials that I want to get developed is they would tell the story of how they were successful in coming to Salina, what the city, what the SCEDO did, the chamber, airport authority, how we all worked as a team to get their problems, solved and package provided. So yeah, that's a little different than talking about more tourism oriented stuff, things that have an impact to more folks, because if you've got a job, it really doesn't matter to you. Most people, what else is going on? I mean, that's kind of my opinion. There are, we need to get more people involved in the community. That's for sure. It's like that everywhere. So.
But, I think both of those big projects at both of the events this last summer that, just kind of the testimonials from the outsiders of the great teamwork of all the different players in Salina that, those were, I think, those were big wins, and it was because there's a lot of different people all working together and all, sharing credit together, and that it's been a good, successful model here for us.
I agree.
Okay, hearing nothing else, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Steve Grungard, I move we adjourn.
Second. All right.
Frank Hampton says, that's the second.
Really quick.
Do we need to go through a poll on adjourning?
I think we've just done it.
Okay,
All right.
have a good day.